a series of 3 of the Gatekeeper training webinars. This is a session 3, and the title of this session is Sustainability. We're glad to have all of you joining us. Thank you for your time. I'm here today with Paul Ierbino and Lynn Schemmer-Valou. I got her name right on the third try. So I want to remind everybody that Christy Murphy is the State Unit on Aging lead person for this Gatekeeper grant. And so if you have questions, you can either email Christy or Paul and Lynn directly. We have contracted with Multnomah County. That's why Paul and Lynn have been giving you all this amazing training. And as we speak this morning, the IT folks at our office back in Salem are working on getting the documents uploaded and ready for the Gatekeeper page on our State Unit on Aging website. So we hope to have that ready very shortly. We had a little technical difficulty with the webinar for the second session, so we hope to have it on the website early next week, as well as this webinar from today. We'll be recording again today. We've been recording everything. Remember to text chat your questions. There will be an evaluation email that you should get right about the time the webinar is ending. Please fill that out. Those answers to the evaluations have been really helpful in helping us prepare for the next one. Remember that there's webinars on the RTZ system talking about how to record your Gatekeeper calls and how to pull the reports for them. And also we wanted to let you know, in the email that came yesterday with your materials for today, we let you know that we have decided to schedule a follow-up conference call for March 18th from 10:30 to 11:30. And we're hoping that that will be a roundtable for questions and sharing. Multnomah County and their APS partner will be on that call. And then we also have Valerie from the Central Office APS on that call. And so it'll be a time for sharing and brainstorming and questions and just talking a little bit more about the partnering and experiences of partnering with the APS folks. So we're glad you're here today, and I'm going to turn it on over to Lynn and Paul, and we'll get rolling.
Good morning. This is Lynn Schemmer-Valou, and I'm going to start off our training today talking about your Gatekeeper program and getting to the point of thinking about sustainability. So this will be an important component as you're doing your planning and, again, kind of thinking about Plan, Do, Study, Act. One of the things that you should be thinking about is also about sustainability, so keeping your program going for the long haul. A few, just to kind of get us grounded in thinking about sustainability, some things to consider as you're getting your Gatekeeper program going. Do you have a vision for your program? Do you have results planned? Are you thinking about outcomes that you're hoping to achieve, setting goals for the program, for the coordinator, those types of things? So that's important to think about. In the spirit of Plan, Do, Study, Act, is your program, does it have some adaptability as you're discovering some stumbling points or some things that didn't quite work out as you had planned? Do you have the ability to be nimble and to adapt your program to meet those challenges or get over that stumbling block? Do you have a good base of community support? That's going to be very important, looking to your advisory council or some gatekeepers that you've identified early on, some gatekeeper businesses. Is there some good community support for this program? And then who are those champions? Really identifying those champions, those gatekeeper organizations that are stepping forward right from the get-go to support this program. They get it, they're on board, they want that training right away. They're maybe helping to give feedback about your training curriculum so that you can do a quick Plan, Do, Study, Act and modify your training curriculum if there was any issues that didn't get presented clearly. So who are those champions of the program? And then your internal systems. What are your relationships with APS? We're going to talk more about that on the conference call that Sue Ann just mentioned. but just really planning and thinking about those internal systems. We'll get to that review in a little bit from our last webinar too. And then of course your sustainability plan. How are you going to keep all these things going past the first few months, past that first year of having a gatekeeper, past your first report of outcomes and stats that you've collected? How are you going to keep the program going? So again, we want to encourage you to kind of think about plan, do, study, act, and kind of using that as your mantra. And on the right-hand side of the screen, thinking about these different components from all different perspectives, all these different partners, people who are involved with the program, people who are impacted by the program. How are you going to incorporate plan, do, study, act, and looking at the program through those different lenses? So you may have to revisit your MOUs and consider some new partners that need to be at the table. Of course, you're going to have to review your policies and procedures, your operating assumptions. We all know that. You're thinking about getting a program going. You've got some assumptions, and some of those play out, and some of those don't. So being, again, nimble and adaptive to kind of change things up as needed. Think about how the program is evolving. Here in Multnomah County, we've had our program for over 25 years, and it's evolved in several different ways over time as new partners come on board, as the demographics change in the community. All sorts of things impact this, and every program that has a hope of being sustainable has to think about evolving. And then act. Keep your program fresh and evolving and relevant. So these are all important things to be thinking about. Some other key factors when you're planning for sustainability, you want to identify resources and gaps. So being aware of those gaps. Those are things that maybe there's nothing to fill that gap today, but down the road there might be, and just keeping that fresh and on your mind. Determine additional human and financial resources that are needed. So again, just kind of always evaluating those pieces. Resources and expertise that can be shared within your organization and in the community. So this is, again, where perhaps your advisory council might come into play. They may have some expertise that they can share. They might have an in to get you with a business or an industry that you have not been successful in being able to do gatekeeper presentations to, but they have some expertise and they have that knowledge on how to get that in for you and maybe can help you do that. And what are some potential changes that are happening in your community? Again, demographics may shift. There may be some new incidents in the community or new needs identified in the community, and the Gatekeeper program might be poised and ready to help be a partner for some other program that's going on or be part of a movement that's going on in your community. Identify a core and broad base of community supporters, including Gatekeeper champions. We've mentioned this several times. It's very important to have support from your community. It's very important to have some Gatekeeper champions identified early on. And then develop an outreach plan to build community awareness and support. So again, after those first presentations, continuing to move on in getting that community outreach rolling. So as I said, we mentioned champion Gatekeeper businesses quite a bit. So this is very important, and just to give a little bit of a definition of what a champion Gatekeeper business, what that looks like. It's one that fully embraces the Gatekeeper program. They're making referrals. They're incorporating the principles of the program into their new employee orientation. They're talking about the Gatekeeper program during staff meetings or team meetings that they have. Maybe they're talking about specific cases or referrals that they have made, but it's very much on the forefront of their thinking. And they contact the Gatekeeper coordinator to have a refresher training, to get new materials sent to them. They're there when you need them to perhaps write a letter of support for a grant or for some additional funding. But they are they really get it and they're fully embracing the program. It's very critical of having a solid point person at that Gatekeeper business, somebody who is internal there at that business, at that entity, and really is driving the mission of the Gatekeeper program. Recognition is a great way to keep the Gatekeeper businesses in the loop of the Gatekeeper program. So in between trainings, you might only go out to a business once a year, maybe less often, to do a training. So how are you going to keep the program fresh for them and keep them in the loop? Recognition is a great way to do that. You could send them the organization or the business letter each year thanking them for their referrals. You could highlight an individual gatekeeper or a business gatekeeper in your newsletter. You could nominate a gatekeeper champion organization or an individual gatekeeper for a community award. If your community does some type of awards for someone who has stepped up, for volunteers, recognizing some sort of community work that's being done, using the Gatekeeper program and submitting an application for one of your gatekeepers is a great way to do some recognition. You could do some press releases for earned media when you've got some great news story of Gatekeeper referral that has gone well and has a good kind of human interest side of it. And then just the power of saying thank you, of just, every so often giving an agency or a business a call to thank them. If you're getting your reports and tracking your statistics and you notice that this particular bank branch has made a few Gatekeeper referrals this month, give them a call. Give that manager or your contact person, give them a call and just thank them for making those referrals. Very powerful. This is an example of a news story that we had in the Oregonian a few years back. This is when we were doing our 15-year celebration for the Gatekeeper program. And this story is great. It highlights a oil delivery driver who noticed one of the customers, the furnace had been out very cold in his home, and he made a Gatekeeper referral. So again, this is an opportunity to really do some great recognition. Recognizing that business, this individual gatekeeper, and also celebrating the 15 years of the program.
Thanks, Lynn. Paul Arabino here, and I'm going to continue the theme about recognition. Recognition and community awareness takes many different forms, so we're going to kind of talk through a couple of different examples. What you have on the screen in front of you right now is a training that I did with one of our transportation providers, the TriMet Lyft folks. And to keep the presentations fresh, as Lynn mentioned, the power of thank you, when we went around and did refresher trainings, we would look through and see where we would get a lot of referrals from, and we'd do like a little Academy Award. So it was very inexpensive to do. Probably can't really zoom in and see this, but the business card boxes that we have that we tend to recycle, I held on to those for like a year. And I wrapped them up and I put their names, I can't even see it from here, but they got recognition for like a great Gatekeeper award. And then the little things on top, even before we had the dollar store in Oregon, I think I got them like 2 for $1, glued them on there. And it went a long way. And it was interesting because when I'd go back to do retrainings, you'd see them in people's queues. They got a lot of recognition for that. So it's just a way of kind of stepping up a little bit, saying thank you very much. We're seeing a trend. We really appreciate the referrals you do. It's just another way of just doing a little recognition. In this particular case, it's recognition among their peers. And so it's really thanking them and demonstrating the importance of how those referrals impact other people's lives. And then when we first had the Gatekeeper program going back many years ago, we did a couple of things. We sent a thank you letter every time we got a Gatekeeper referral from an individual, and we had a database and we tracked it. Sadly, as times change and we've gotten busier, we've gotten away from that practice. But what we did is, for the very first referral that we had a little Gatekeeper lapel pin, and we would send that out with the Gatekeeper brochure and thank them, and then we'd let them know that we really appreciated their referral, and then we had a mail merge program that basically said where that referral went, whether it went to Protective Services or our East Branch or whatever. But it was just a way of thanking them, The brochure was just another reminder that they could have in their cube or share with a new coworker. So that is something you might think about, especially for a brand new program. Referrals will kind of trickle in when you're new. So any kind of reinforcement that you can do to really kind of go out of your way and really thank that person, that referral really makes a difference to us. So that's what we did early on. Next slide, when we were kind of running out of time and not being able to be as personalized, but we wanted to still thank them, we would send a little thank you to the Gatekeeper referral. We would do the mail merge. And sometimes it would have little periodic themes or a success story. So it was a postcard. It was quick. It was a way to still acknowledge the Gatekeeper referrals. And this is when we got away from doing the PIN, where we just sent a thank you to everyone, because at that point our program was pretty robust and we were getting well over 50 referrals per month, and it was just hard to kind of track the PIN thing. So anyway, postcard, letter, just a way to kind of recognize gatekeepers. So Lynn talked a little bit about community awareness and events that you can have in your community. What we have here is an example of a press release, and this is a great tie-in with Adult Protective Services. So years ago, we used to have Elder Abuse Awareness Day, then it was Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and then it became Vulnerable Adult Abuse Awareness Day. I think right now it's Vulnerable Adult Abuse Awareness Month. I don't remember. There was also, Lynn talked about a way to recognize folks. There used to be the public health heroes, so several of you in the call might remember that. We would tie in very closely. We would submit Gatekeeper referrals, the Gatekeeper folks that made the referrals to that annual celebration, which I believe is no longer active. However, in your own local community, you can pull from anything that's state or federal. So in this press release, we looked very closely at what the state was doing, and then we would align with that, maybe customize it to our individual county. So a lot of the work is already done. And the nice thing about this is you're able to work with your local elected officials. They are able to support this. We have had a lot of support from county commissioners and our county chair of Multnomah County as a way of reminding them this is a best practice. As a county, we really support this, and we're going to have an event or some kind of a recognition to note this. So again, that's just a sample proclamation. Okay, so next up we have is an example of a press release working to show the partnership between Adult Protective Services and the Gatekeeper program. And this goes back in time. I was saying earlier, this is Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and I think at this point it was World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, which for some reason I think is in June, if I'm not mistaken. So there's different months that you could tie into if you wanted to have an event. So May is Older Americans Month, there's Caregiver Month, there's Abuse Awareness Month. So you can actually kind of plan several months in advance and really kind of take either the national or international message and then fine-tune that to your local community. And how are you doing that in your community to make a difference? And Gatekeeper is a great way to demonstrate that. And as Lynn mentioned earlier, when planning things like this, you will often have champion gatekeepers that like to be involved in planning, that would like to be recognized or be able to have a way to contribute to that kind of event. So it doesn't have to fall all on you.
So we are going to try to get fancy here and watch a video clip. This is an example that happened just a couple years ago of a news story that hit the press. A letter carrier who was a trained gatekeeper and did the right thing. Paul and I think both, although we're not shown in this clip, both ended up on the news that evening or that day. But we're going to watch this clip and see if we can get this to work. Can I hit escape? Mm-hmm. Go. Bear with us.
Bear with us.
Yeah, you can move it down.
So while Lynn is finding that all in a matter of a day, I was interviewed by the news that afternoon, and I went out to a local post office and had a conversation with a reporter from Channel 8, and there was so much interest they did a program in the evening with Stephanie Strickland's program. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Live at 7?
Live at 7, and so then Lynn was actually on there in the evening. So we got a lot of awareness for that. Let's see if we can, are we able to click on that link?
Well, I have downloaded it.
Can we cut and paste it?
Sorry, guys. Yeah, there might be a commercial first. Hang on.
5 people that pass by on the street every day suffer from hunger.
I'll lower the volume for the commercial. Yeah.
A second grandmother who lives alone is alive tonight thanks to 2 unlikely heroes. News Channel 8's Ed Teachout has been checking on her status all day, and he joins us with her condition. Ed.
Patricia, the elderly woman trapped alone for 2 days is doing well, but things could have been a lot worse had it not been for a neighbor and her postman.
In the 25 years Benson Lee's been delivering the mail, he picks up on the day-to-day routines of his customers.
I think we're kind of like the neighborhood watchdogs.
When he saw the mail of a senior who lives alone had not been picked up, it caught his attention.
And I know she's real diligent about picking up her mail, so I was a little suspicious when her mail was being built up.
So he asked a neighbor who checks in on the senior from time to time if she'd seen her.
She has mail in her box, and she never misses a day without getting her mail out of the box. So, okay, yeah, I'll go check on her.
The door was slightly open, but the screen was locked, so Dahlman yelled to see if the senior was okay.
Tell me yes or no. Do you need help? She said yes.
Dahlman found a bathroom window open.
Went through the window, and she was been laying on the floor. Been there for a couple days, I guess. All she wanted was something to drink.
Dahlman knew after falling and lying on the floor for 2 days, she needed more than just water.
She was holding my hands, and she didn't want to let go of my hands. And I said, well, I got to go get the phone. I got to call for help.
She called 911, and the senior was rushed to Adventist Hospital's emergency room. She's listed in fair condition, but not up to an on-camera interview. But she says she's very grateful to the postman and neighbor who saved her life.
That mailman is a hero. I'm telling you, he saved her life. By paying attention to her, that she got her mail every day, knowing that she didn't get it, and taking a couple minutes to get me to go check. Otherwise, she would have been dead.
I don't know if I'm a hero. I think I did a good citizen job. I think neighbors and people need to look out for their fellow senior citizens, I guess.
2 ordinary people delivering help and becoming heroes to a senior in need.
Now, senior advocates say this is a good lesson for everyone to check up from time to time on seniors in your neighborhood, especially those that live alone.
Okay. So again, that's just a nice example of a letter carrier who was trained as a gatekeeper. Now, they never actually made a gatekeeper referral, but he knew kind of the premise of the gatekeeper program and keeping a watchful eye and not just moving on, but rather taking the time to do something, paying attention again to those signs that she always picked up her mail, and this was an elder. So a really nice example. And again, that's then Paul and I spent some time on the news talking specifically about the Gatekeeper program. And here's Paul getting interviewed by one of the reporters from KGW about the Gatekeeper program.
So sort of a continuation of what we were talking about earlier is looking at ways that you can celebrate those successes and milestones. So you just had a chance to see that video clip. Now, in your community, if that happened, what are some things that you could do to recognize that person at some kind of a community celebration? There's a lot of situations like that. And once you have a Gatekeeper program, you realize the impact that it has on people's lives. What you're about to see here right now is from the Multnomah County website. We celebrated 25 years of the program a couple of years ago. We invited some key partners, including the president of the Letter Carriers Union. They've been a very, very strong supporter of our program from the very beginning. Portland General Electric, also a very, very strong supporter. So we invited those kind of champions to come and take part in that celebration. We had a proclamation. We had some examples that we highlighted, and the board was very pleased to, again, be involved in that effort. So any kind of publicity that you can generate that talks about even your 1-year anniversary, you're going to celebrate your first 10 referrals that you received. Think about what it is that's going to be a success in your community, and you can define that in whatever way that you think is going to be important. So anything you think would be newsworthy. There's a lot of potential for fundraising and supporting Gatekeeper programs, especially with reaching out to those champion businesses that Lynn talked about earlier. I think it's just a really good fit for a lot of organizations that they want to have that mutually beneficial relationship with a Gatekeeper supported agency. And again, we have talked in previous calls about utility companies. They would often prevent the shutoff. If a Gatekeeper referral is made, that is a form of goodwill to us. If they're going to wait 2 weeks or a month or whatever, so they don't have to go through the hassle of turning off someone's power only to charge the consumer to reconnect it again. Or it could be other in-kind support, paying for newsletters, anything that's kind of project related. There's been several times that we've had events and the Gatekeeper organizations would pay for the catering or something, just to kind of just put their name out there, use their logo, anything that kind of just brings in that good mutual support. We, over time, saw that there was some trends with the Gatekeeper referral. So going back several years ago, we talked about some of those Gatekeeper referrals and those folks being transitioned into our Public Guardian program. And there was a lot of interest from those Gatekeeper organizations in learning more about, well, what is the Public Guardian program? And also knowing that they had a role in protecting that person until they became enrolled in the Public Guardian program. So I can't even remember how many years. I'm going to say it's probably a good 15 years that there were offers from the business community to support those folks during the holidays. And so we've now, for the past 15, 16 years, have had a holiday drive for gifts for our Public Guardian clients. And Portland General Electric, the Portland Water Bureau, U.S. Bank, and others, they sponsor our clients. They do a great job. The deputies every year come up with a list. There's no HIPAA violation. They use a code. They just use a random code like D24, F23, and that will identify the client. The gifts are purchased, wrapped, and they just come. We'll see some photos in a few minutes, but it's really so nice that we actually have that time. They come in. We have like hot cider with them, and they just really appreciate the work that we do through our Public Guardian program, because again, those are folks that many of them have identified for us early on. And again, with the premise of the Gatekeeper program, they're identifying anybody at risk. There's no tie to Medicaid or low income or over income. It's just if that person needs assistance, that's who they're going to be helping. So we've also partnered with the United Way's Workplace Giving campaign. We have a risk fund we'll talk to you about in a few minutes. So all those donations go directly into an Adult Protective Services risk fund. And all of those monies go into paying for like maybe a utility bill or medication, any kind of an emergency expense that APS has to just front that cost and there's no other fund to use. Those Gatekeepers contribute through the annual Workplace Giving campaign. And as mentioned earlier, some of the in-kind support, costs for printing, maybe costs for catering, and they've also lended support for grants, which has been really helpful for additional funding. So here's a photo of some folks from Portland General Electric. They come every year. It's gotten to the point now they have to bring 2 vehicles, and in addition to expert wrapping and putting a lot of energy into getting each gift for our client, and often these are folks that just would go without a gift at all, to be honest. They're all low income. They really appreciate that visit. And here's another view inside. So when they come in, We're having conversations with them. And we just get to kind of share stories. You'll see some antler ears there. But it's a very nice connection with them. And again, that's something that they initiated when they learned more about our Public Guardian program. So again, in your local community, there may be some other tie-ins with your Gatekeeper program. Some of you are nonprofits. Some of you it might be easier to work out some kind of a contribution versus us being a governmental. But anyway, there's a lot of potential there. Gatekeeper can be sort of like that olive branch to extend to the business community. Here's sort of like a collage of letters of support. I think on past calls we talked about some additional funding that we've received to have Gatekeeper in place before this has become a statewide effort. So there's just 3 examples: Allstate Insurance, Portland General Electric, and the Letter Carriers Union advocating for us, saying this is an important program, please fund it, it's a best practice. This is how it's helping our customers. So it's something really beautiful about having somebody else advocate for you, saying this needs more funding. So again, just a great opportunity to partner with the business community. And a little bit about Multnomah County's Risk Fund. This goes back several years, but we had a client that was what we called a risk client back then, who our risk team was spending a lot of energy with. Our community health nurse, geriatric mental health specialist going out, protective services. When that client died, they bequested $8,000 to Multnomah County. We just got a check in the mail because they were just so pleased with the work that we did. Even though the individual that we were attempting to help, he didn't necessarily want our help, but he was agreeable to having folks visit him, and they were just so impressed with that they bequested $8,000. So we got the check in the mail, and that was the start of our Adult Protective Services Risk Fund. And so we now are able to put any kind of like speaker fees, or if we get any kind of donations, we put that into the risk fund. That also, as I mentioned earlier, the United Way campaign. And then the risk fund will advance the slide to the next one, which I think is a continuation. It really helps us pay for those emergency things that we have no other fund for. Maybe Medicaid would pay for it, but we can't wait 30 days, or we can't wait for a hearing. They need something right then and there. So we were able to get APS approval locally to pay for certain things, and it just gives us greater flexibility in helping folks that have urgent needs.
So I'm going to hop back in here for a minute and talk about volunteers. So there are several different ways that volunteers can help you through your Gatekeeper program. We've mentioned a lot of these already. Serving on your advisory council is a great way for people to serve. Providing Gatekeeper trainings at their place of work. So it could be through your champion organization that someone there is able to do those trainings, again, part of the new employee orientation, part of ongoing staff meeting trainings, things like that. A volunteer could serve on a speakers bureau, so being trained to go out in the community and do Gatekeeper presentations. A great way that we have utilized this is through retirees. So if you have someone who is retired from the banking industry, perhaps they want to take the lead and tailor that Gatekeeper presentation for the banking industry. And so they can use their connections and their know-how of how banks run to do Gatekeeper training throughout the community at various bank branches. We have a retired letter carrier, and that's exactly what he does. He goes and does the Gatekeeper training throughout the different post branches, post offices. Actually, Tri-County, he goes Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington County through the different post offices and works closely with the president of the Letter Carriers Union to do that. Gatekeepers can also, volunteers can also serve as a mentor to other Gatekeeper businesses. Again, kind of talking about how they have integrated the Gatekeeper program into their business and helping a new business who is considering how they can set up their internal protocols and how they are going to make Gatekeeper referrals. They can also volunteer at community events for your department or your agency. There's a lot of different ways to think about this and how the use of volunteers, whether it's just a community member or whether it's a volunteer through a Gatekeeper organization or business. There's a lot of different ways, and this kind of also speaks to the sustainability of your program. As the program gets bigger and that coordinator that you have hired gets busier and busier, it's great to have a nice team of volunteers behind that person to help support the program. So going back now to Plan, Do, Study, Act, and rolling out your Gatekeeper program in your community. So you have all the information you need. It's time to get started.
So at this point, we'll see if there are any questions that we can respond to.
Yeah, and so the theme today was sustainability, and in order to have sustainability for this type of program, they've talked with you about making sure you get champions in your community. They've talked with you about making sure that you're recognizing and acknowledging these champions and the folks who are involved in the Gatekeeper, because as people feel appreciated and recognized, they'll buy in more. They've talked with you about getting the volunteers and doing the public speaking and getting media coverage so people know what you're doing, so getting the word out there about what you're doing and letting people see how valuable it is. All these things are related to that sustainability, as well as, you know, pulling in those volunteers and getting it, you know, as Lynn was saying earlier, when you get those champions, there's a definition of that. It's businesses who, you know, have integrated this into their new employee program. They're telling people about it. So all those bits and pieces are what helps you with the sustainability of your program, because it then becomes embedded in the community, and other people in the community are champions as well as yourself and your agency. So people want it to keep going, and Paul talked about them writing letters, getting other grant funding, doing fundraising. You know, you can leverage on their resources. They'll help pay for things. All those things connect in with the sustainability of your program. So thank you very much. We're watching. We're not seeing any questions. I want to remind you guys that we did schedule a conference call for March 18th. I believe it's Tuesday, and it'll be 10:30 to 11:30 in the morning. We did send out an email yesterday with your materials for today that had the information and the call number. We'll send another one out just a few days before it, just as a reminder. Again, that conference call will be just a follow-up, and it will be mostly related to the whole partnering with APS, and Paul and Lynn and their Multnomah County APS partner will be on there, and then we'll have a central office APS person also to answer questions. You guys should have received or should be receiving an email with a link to a SurveyMonkey. We appreciate your feedback. Paul and Lynn are on contract with the State Unit on Aging to help you guys with your programs. We've had 3 webinars now, and there will be a lot of material on the website within the next few days. We'll make sure we send an email to let you know it's there. But once you've had a chance to review the webinars and review the materials, feel free to contact them, and they'll be glad to work with you a little bit. And bring your questions to the conference call in a couple of weeks. We're still not seeing any questions.
So we have plenty of time with you today. So maybe another way of framing this is if you have any questions at all. We've just covered 3 modules. Many of you have been part of all 3. Some of you haven't. But if you have any questions at all, whether it's related to today's presentation or any of the past presentations or things that we have not covered, now would be a great time to start that dialogue with us. And it's lighting up. Questions are coming in.
Were the MOUs for the ADRCs amended to include the Gatekeeper, or did you draft new ones?
Good question. So when we first started, I believe that there were MOUs with Gatekeeper, and that precedes Lynn and I. But for our MOUs that we have right now, it's more around the ADRC in general. So we actually have an MOU with 211. We have one with the Mental Health Call Center in terms of how we're handling those calls.
So many of you have one MOU that you're kind of getting started with that lists all the partners, but as you guys move further into your development of the ADRC, you may separate out some of those MOUs and have individual MOUs with specific partners, with, like Paul was saying, with referral processes, with the roles and responsibilities, and how you guys integrate and work together. We can talk to Christy about whether there might be some sample MOUs on the website, or whether we'll pose that question to Christy. Sean from Douglas is asking about sending sample MOUs out.
Yeah, so those are going to be posted, and actually I just sent one, a brand new one to Christy. We just finalized it yesterday, so Christy will be getting that up on the SUA website. It's our latest MOU with the mental health. It's now 3 pages, so over time, as we are going back and forth and realizing that we need to partner more together. Now again, while it's not specific to Gatekeeper per se, it's more global and focused, and we're seeing some themes around mental health where there's some disparities and having consumers having difficulty accessing services. So we have bumped it up. We actually have an advocacy provision in there, and there's also a section in there about more of a philosophical bent about the use of warm transfer, which I think will be very helpful with Gatekeeper in terms of what we value, both of our call centers, how we value that relationship with each other. So Chrissy has just got that the other day. We'll post that, and we're going to replace that with the prior mental health MOU that we had in place there. Great question. Thank you.
So Christy's saying, yes, we will post the MOUs to the SUA website, and we're pushing to get all the materials up. She's been talking to the IT folks at the state, and she's pushing them, and they were working on getting things. They were actually working on our stuff this morning, so we're hoping to get it up pretty quickly, and we will send an email out letting everybody know that it's up there. Again, you guys watch your emails. You should be getting an email with a link to an evaluation. We don't see any more questions at this time. We'll stay on just a couple more minutes to make sure we have answered everybody's questions. And again, we're excited about doing the follow-up conference call in a couple of weeks. We think that you guys will have had time to sit with this information, look the stuff over on the website, and you can come in with your questions. You know, we'll start that with the theme of the APS partnership, but we'll also use it for other questions that you guys may have as follow-up. So we're not seeing any more questions. We'll give just another minute or two. We really appreciate everybody's engagement and your hard work, and we're excited about all the Gatekeeper programs that are going to go up across the state. We're all here happy to help support you guys in making that happen and start your Plan, Do, Study, Act. And let us know if you have any other questions. We're still not seeing any more questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and sign off for the day. We can try unmuting you guys, and I don't know how that would be, but in case people have questions and you just are having trouble getting it typed in. Anybody have questions they want to ask in person?
And I don't know how to wait for this, but anyway. So
we're unmuting people. We're in the process, so we can hear you now if anybody has questions. Marcy, I think you may have muted yourself because we're not able to unmute you. But everybody's unmuted if anybody has questions, wants to ask. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks very much for everybody's participation. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.